So, folks, we gotta talk about Zohran Mamdani and the political machine he has built. Because it's truly shaping into something real. It is becoming something that I think is going to be talked about in history books. And I don't say that lightly, you know. And I say this because of the reaction circulating around them finalizing the budget. And specifically, you've got places like the City Reporter here talking about the budget and the budget issues specifically. Now, I think that this article is actually pretty fair. It goes over how a lot of how the budget got balanced this time around is due to one-time cash infusions from the state of New York, which is true. Like that is, and I talked about this when we talked about the initial budget proposal that got put out at the beginning of June. The fact that in the future, they are not going to be able to balance the New York City budget in the same way. And how that presents a pretty big problem for the budget after this coming year, right? And when we talk about a political machine, it is dependent upon the performance of the people who make it. So in this particular case, Zohran Mamdani needed to have a balanced budget specifically for this upcoming year. The first budget he has access to making priorities with, he needs to be able to succeed with. And that's why I thought these one-time cash infusions would be helpful. I also read this article from City and State New York, which really comes up with a great phrase: the rise of Tammany Hall. Which is impossible to say, but it is meant to be reminiscent of the rise of Tammany Hall. And if you know anything about New York State politics, Tammany Hall is, and was rather, a long-time political machine that was built in New York in order, like starting very early. I think like in the 1780s, it was formed. And it became like a very powerful political machine relied on by immigrants, Catholics in particular, a lot of the minority groups that were targeted by bigotry at the time were drawn towards this political machine because the politicians elected by it would actually then represent immigrants and, propagate policy that was anti-abusing immigrants, which is crazy, right? And this proved to be marvelously effective. Now, the reason it became maligned in America to talk about Tammany Hall is because eventually it turned into a political corruption machine. Like the machine was corrupted, and it began dealing in grotesque amounts of graft and self-dealing, and it became practically a crime family. What we have here, I think, is Zohran Mamdani and the rise of his political machine in New York that has now proven that it can send people not just to the state assembly, but it can send people to Congress. That is a really, really strong argument that this political machine is effective and working. All of this to say, I'm actually going to link this both in the description of the segment and also just in chat right now so you guys can check it out for yourselves. It's a lengthy read. I think it's worth reading because I think that there is a lot. I think there is a lot of benefits and upsides to this. All right. Isn't DSA the machine though? No. DSA is part of the machine, but the machine extends beyond DSA, right? Like, when we talk about the political machine, it's more than just the one group. It's also the people who are getting elected, even if they're not part of DSA, right? Like, Brad Lander got elected by this political machine. And Brad Lander, I don't believe is a DSA member. Like, he's not a socialist. And that's worth noting. And a lot of these people are going to, it's more the DSA. No, it's not, guys. It's not. DSA is part of that, but it's not the entirety of the machine. It's one part of it. Because the other part is being built by Zohran Mamdani himself and his comms team. And that isn't necessarily owned and operated entirely by DSA. It is contingent on him as a person, right? A lot of these things are bigger than just any one political org. It goes beyond that. And that's why one of the reasons I'm excited about it, because it is not just building a political machine that works for in-house solutions. It is a broad, wide-ranging machine. When you're looking at New York in particular, like, there's the Working Families Party. There are other political orgs out there working in tandem. There are, like, internal mechanisms within the New York City Council and, like, the Assembly. Like, there's a lot of different stuff happening here that takes coordination from people outside DSA as well. And so when I'm trying to talk about this, and why I think it's important, is because that this is a machine that for the first time ever is really independent of the Democratic Party's direct control and oversight. And that's one of the reasons why people are reacting so negatively against Zohran Mamdani and against these DSA upstarts who are being sent to Congress, right? I wanted to play a clip here of the announcement of this budget, because I think that this is also what scares them. This is also what scares establishment Democrats. What you see right here in this moment is Zohran Mamdani shaking the hand of New York City Council leader Julie Menin. Now, I've talked about Julie Menin in the past because she's a centrist Democrat, guys. But Zohran Mamdani's political machine is strong enough to get her to bend the knee, which is what she's doing by shaking his hand and agreeing on this budget. His political machine is outmaneuvering and outpowering the DNC machine. That's terrifying, because there really hasn't been a meaningful political backlash from the left to the establishment Democrats' neoliberalism, in my entire lifetime. Not a meaningful one. I just want you to keep paying attention to this, because Zohran Mamdani here is like she's not capitulating. She's not shaking Zohran Mamdani's hand on this because of DSA. She's doing it because of all of the additional work that has gone in beyond DSA to create a support structure for Zohran Mamdani. Whether it's done by the Working Families Party, whether it's done by individual volunteers who have no exact political affiliation, they just want to come out and help Zohran. Like, she is doing this because there is a united front. And that's terrifying. She's doing it because who wouldn't want to touch his hand? Exactly. She's doing it because, one, her proximity to him makes her look good, which I think is maybe one of the most powerful forces in modern politics. This concept of, well, if we get X and Y in the room and we get Y close to X, then the magic of how people like X will rub off on Y. And I know it sounds really simplistic, but that's what's happening here. And the fact that Mamdani has managed to create and foster this gravity well in which people are coming to him, that is, in and of itself, it kind of is like a self-perpetuating power. It can keep pulling people in and strengthening that machine. It can snowball, is what I'm trying to say. But let's take a look at this.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I would like to start by thanking Speaker Menin, Finance Chair Linda Lee, and the entire City Council for their partnership. And I want to thank Sharif Suleiman, my director of the office.
And to be very clear, it's not bad to have a political machine. The machine is only as good or bad as the purpose it is used for. And in this particular case, this machine is being used to do a lot of good. So I'm here for it.
Office of Management and Budget, as well as the entire OMB team for their incredible hard work and their devotion to our city. 21 weeks ago, I spoke directly to New Yorkers about the scale of the massive budget crisis that we had inherited. It was January. Snow lay on the ground. Our city was reckoning with a $12 billion deficit, a fiscal crisis larger than any since the Great Recession. For too long, New York City had relied on budgeting tricks instead of budgeting honestly. Costs were hidden, fiscal cliffs were ignored, difficult decisions were deferred for someone else to make. We chose a different path. 14 weeks later, after long nights and painstaking work, we presented an executive budget that brought that $12 billion gap down to zero. We balanced the budget without asking working New Yorkers to shoulder the burden once again. We balanced the budget without slashing the services that New Yorkers rely on, the cultural institutions and public transportation that connect people to the city and to one another. And we balanced the budget by governing with a fiscal responsibility that has been absent for far too long from City Hall. We scoured for savings. We found efficiencies and streamlined city government. We refused to repeat the mistakes that created the crisis in the first place. We budgeted honestly. We accounted for the real costs facing our city. And we began building a government that plans for tomorrow instead of pretending that it will never come. We worked closely with Governor Hochul and our partners.
Keep up the good work and being a bright light in these dark times. Much love to everyone.
Thank you so much, Crystal Hazer. Hope things are going well for you, and thank you for subscribing with Prime.
In both Albany and here at the City Council. And we raised taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, instead of taking more from those with the least. Throughout this process, I've been reminded of the words of the Austrian economist, Friedrich Hayek. If socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. If these past months have shown us anything, it is that socialists not only understand economics, just as well as the capitalists who came before, but that we can solve their years of mismanagement through an embrace of our principles.
It's exciting to hear a politician talk like this. It's exciting to hear him casually just like punt Hayek. Like it's great. But that's also what's scary, right? And it's one of the things I've been talking about since the beginning of his term. This is what scares establishment Democrats. Competence. Because his competent government sets a standard that is going to ripple outward. People are going to be like, "Hey, why can't we have that like in New York City?" And suddenly people start seeing what is possible when you have leadership that actually works for working people. Right? Because suddenly a lot of these establishment Dems are going to be facing a raised bar that they are incapable of clearing. Because for so long, they have been suckling on the teat of corporate lobbyists. And so this is one of the things that just absolutely pisses them all right the fuck off.
There is nothing fiscally responsible about balancing the budget on the backs of working people. Today, 6 weeks after presenting our executive budget, I am proud to stand alongside Speaker Menon and the City Council to announce that we have successfully negotiated an agreement on a final adopted budget. We have worked together to usher in a new era of fiscal health for our city, one that is sustainable, one that is durable, and one that makes needed investments in a safer, more affordable New York. I've spoken at great length about building a new culture of government excellence. I am proud that this budget reflects that very commitment.
Would a clone of Zohran Mamdani be a natural-born citizen?
Oh,
Thoughtful
damn.
face emoji.
Oh, damn. Megan Fox's giant boobs cooking over there.
$125.8 billion budget for fiscal year 2027. It makes historic investments in affordable housing by expanding rental assistance and creating a new $175 million housing voucher program for New Yorkers in need. We are not just helping tenants. We are helping homeowners as well, as we expand the homeowner help desk, and we're supporting those who have endured domestic violence as we fund housing stability microgrants. We are looking out for our students, including students with disabilities who have too often been left behind. And we're supporting our CUNY students both in school and beyond, with investments like CUNY's Reconnect, which helps adult New Yorkers return to school and get their degrees, as well as disability services, academic support, and so much more. And we are making public transit more affordable for low-income New Yorkers by increasing the baseline for fare fares by $54 million. This budget makes meaningful investments in the health and safety of New Yorkers. As we prepare to mark 25 years since the horrific September 11th terror attacks, we are committing more than $34 million to create a public portal that will finally release documents from across city government related to post-9/11 air quality and health risks.
Oh, hell yeah. These are all things, this is what I mean, right? I saw someone in chat, there it is, DJ Disc Machine. Funny how this is portrayed like socialism in USA. He's not even seizing the means of production, lol. Exactly. But I do think that there is going to come a time where you start to see a shift, specifically in how we get workers in control over the means of production in New York City. I do think that there is going to be something that is coming down the pipeline here that does start pushing that. Because what he's doing right now, in my mind, is building. He's building out this great political machine. And he is building it specifically through being competent, by building his credibility with his constituents, by forging political alliances, by being charismatic as fuck, and by getting in front of a camera at every available opportunity to clearly and concisely talk about what he and his government are doing for average, everyday working people. Because it is going to take frankly, a spirit bomb-sized amount of political capital in order to get something through in New York City that will begin a process of workers becoming the owners of their own workplaces, right? And I do think that there are ways you can do this. Specifically, I've talked in the past about the economic vice idea of basically making it easier for workers to start democratic worker co-ops and providing mechanisms to transition businesses into democratic worker co-ops that already exist and are going to be sold or offshored or what have you. And so I do think that what is happening right now is all in service of showing what socialism in government and in your local economy would actually look like. And that alternative is actually better than what we have in broader America. And so I do think that this is ultimately where he's going. I at least I hope so. Wild that 2 years ago, basically nobody knew who Mamdani was. I mean, he's literally come out of nowhere. And I do think that there is a pathway for people who are coming out of nowhere to run for public office in like 2028. It's a little bit too late for 2026 now, but except that we pay for them and us. Well, yeah, that is what taxes are. You have landed on the idea of how taxes are collected from everybody and then spent on the public good. You have figured that out. Strengthening union power would be a good first step. I do think so, but I gotta be honest, when it comes to workers owning the means of production, unions are a band-aid. Unions are a band-aid solution to a systemic problem. I would much prefer seeing I would much prefer the government creating advantages for unions to make use of. But I would prefer systems put in place to transition to direct democratic worker co-op ownership. Because ultimately, that's the best of both worlds. The union just directly controls the company, essentially. Also, someone asked earlier, am I ever worried about political machines being co-opted in the future and misused? That's the danger of every form of power we have ever developed, is like any form of power can be abused, right? This is why there are some people who are virulently opposed to the idea of hierarchy at all within human society. It's because power can be abused. And I am just firmly of the belief that in a democracy, it takes all of us being on our toes and vigilant at all times in order to avoid that outcome. And I do think that one of the things that is very important and incumbent upon each and every one of us is to pass along that vigilance to the next generation. Because what happened after the passage of the New Deal was essentially union organizers, socialist organizers, they all went to sleep. Or most of them went to sleep anyway. And for like the next 60 years, 80 years, the movement on the national scale was basically dead. And it's because a lot of people, they thought the New Deal was good enough, and they thought government institutions were going to keep them safe. They thought that the courts were going to go towards the left forever and ever. And in the meantime, a lot of Democrats rested on their laurels. A lot of leftists, not leftists, a lot of, the left broadly in government just got real cozy and even started, buying and selling favors. And that's how you get neoliberalism within the Democratic Party in the form of, the Clintons and, all the Democrats onward from them. And what you wind up seeing is a lot of laziness, a lot of complicity, and a lot of thinking that just like, oh, it's impossible for things to get worse from here. We cannot afford our future, generations to make that same mistake. Even if we manage to see, incalculable number of successes within our lifetime, we need to make sure that the people who carry that torch forward, that torch of liberty, that they remain vigilant and that they remain holding the powerful to account and that they remain speaking truth to power.
For too long, New Yorkers who have become sick have had to fight for information that should have been theirs from the very beginning. We will provide the transparency that New Yorkers living with post-9/11 health concerns deserve. We are strengthening mental health services across our city. No, it's good. Working with the Progressive Caucus, we are making sweeping investments in mobile mental health treatment and crisis-to-care programs, including crisis respite centers. And in a time where too many of our fellow New Yorkers are reckoning with discrimination, we will increase the budget of the New York City Commission on Human Rights, as well as support our immigrant communities by growing the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs Legal Support Hotline. And we are committing to the public institutions that make New York City the greatest city in the world. We will invest $10 million in each of the next 3 fiscal years to create a cultural stability fund to help arts organizations weather financial emergencies. And we are baselining funding for the Parks Department that had previously been added 1 year at a time, funding more than 100 new staff and allowing us to invest in our community gardens and tree stump removal.
Like, this is what I mean, right? It might seem small and it might seem insignificant, but to the working people of New York City, they have to walk by that stump that's been moldering for years. It's been a blight in their ecosystem that they've lived with. And when the local government actually steps up in response to Mamdani being in charge, that's something tangible that people can see, that people can then enjoy the benefits of having been fixed. This is genuinely very important when it comes to government because 99.9% of people have no idea what their local government does for them. And 99.9% of people do not see a lot of the government work being done. Like, they don't see it being done unless they are sitting in a traffic at a standstill and they're just frustrated they can't get to work. And that doesn't really seem like something that's making people's lives better. It makes them frustrated. But something like tree stumps, something like beautifying public parks, that's something you can see, that's something you can experience, and that's something that genuinely made your day better. And it's important. It performs a role here, while also providing good paying jobs.
In addition, we are creating a new parks pilot program called Renew Crew to fix up playgrounds, basketball courts, and the fields where New Yorkers spend their summers.
See? Oh man, government never does anything for me. Mamdani shows up the next day, fixes your fucking playground. Like, every parent, especially working class parents, whose neighborhoods often get overlooked when it comes to beautification efforts or repairs to, playground equipment, making sure it's safe for their kids. Like, this matters. It matters so much if you can bring your kid to a park or not, you know?
Finally, we are adding $350 million to the city's general reserve, proof positive of our commitment to governing with fiscal responsibility. Above all else, this budget offers a roadmap for the years to come. This is only the first budget of our administration. Many more will follow, and every budget that follows will build on the principles established here: honest budgeting, fiscal discipline, transparent government, and an unwavering belief that working people deserve a city hall that delivers for them every single day. We will return to this budget as a reminder of how much more is made possible when we shake off the shackles of the status quo and pursue the transformative change that New Yorkers deserve. That means finding efficiencies, it means cutting waste, and it means taxing the rich. We will return to this budget when we are told, as we so often are, that we must budget with austerity rather than ambition. And we will return to this budget as a model of how to invest in our city, how to place working people at the heart of our political decisions, and how to govern with an enduring commitment to fiscal health and fiscal responsibility. Thank you. And now I would like to invite City Council Speaker Julie Menon to the podium.
Look at how he finesses. Now she gets to talk about all of her victories in this bill, and it's great. But he ends his entire speech by pointing out, we're going to balance this budget next year with the same principles. We're going to tax the rich. And it's what I've been telling you guys, right? By having a success this year, he sets himself up to win an easier battle next year when it comes to taxing the wealthy on something else absurd that they have going on, like houses. Yeah, hey, maybe we tax you extra on your third house in New York City worth over $5 million. You know, like, there are additional ways to tax the wealthy. And the fact that he has the rather conservative Democrat from the city council on his side now, owing him a favor now, and the fact that he just sent 6 new members to the New York Assembly and is on good terms with Kathy Hochul, y'all, he's going to get some taxes on the rich passed. The rich are going to be paying their fair share in New York City. But Jack, how will I afford my 6th mega yacht? Well, maybe you'll have to downsize from, the 5th mega yacht that has a smaller yacht inside to just like a normal mega yacht without the smaller yacht inside. What is Mamdani going to tax when the rich leaves New York? The rich don't have to leave New York because they're rich. Y'all realize that, like, one of the advantages of being rich is you can just exist literally anywhere. If the rich were truly interested in not paying any taxes whatsoever, they'd move out into the middle of nowhere. They'd go live in fucking like Oklahoma in the middle of nowhere. They don't do that because they like living in New York City. They like living in LA. They like living in these places. And they're rich, which allows them to do it even harder. Like, it's just this argument that they're going to leave. No, they're not. Literally, part of the reason that they're rich is so that they don't have to give a fuck about that. Not too much on Oklahoma. Look, I've nothing against Oklahoma, but like, it ain't New York City, you know? Also, like, I don't know. If they do leave, fuck them. Fuck those clowns. Fuck those unpatriotic, people. They did not deserve New York City if they did not want to contribute to the well-being of people there. If they didn't want to do their civic duty, fuck them. They should be ashamed wherever they live for not wanting to do that. I just thought all of this was very interesting, and all of it is, again, becoming incredibly clear here that this is really going to be the undoing of centrist and establishment Democrats. Chuck Schumer hits his limit. The Democratic leader has frustrated some in his party over how he's engaged in this year's primaries. Everything was ready for Dan Kleben to launch his candidacy for Senate in Maine. He had informed top Democrats about his decision, hired staff to run his campaign, and picked an early summer day in 2025 to make the public announcement. And then came in the call from Washington. It was a warning from Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. They were basically like, don't launch, said one person with direct knowledge of the situation. We're telling you, don't launch. Because, guys, Chuck Schumer, all of the candidates he's been raising up have had their ass beat, have just had their asses beat in these primaries by progressive challengers. And that's a really big problem, because every time Chuck Schumer's, prized pick doesn't win, his stock goes down, his influence goes down. And as far as being a kingmaker, people are talking about Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York City, as if he's a bigger and more influential player in Democratic politics than one of the highest ranking members of the Democratic Party. And that's really bizarre when you stop to think about it. That's strange. That's weird. And all of this is continuing to snowball. It's snowballing over and over and over again. And, Ken Klippenstein tells it like it is here. Dinosaur Democrats meet asteroid. And, obviously Malak Kiros here looking absolutely adorable after her win. But, the asteroid comparison is apt, because these people are not acting like there is a crisis. These people are not acting as if there is an existential crisis on the courts, an existential crisis in the White House, an existential crisis in the formulation of Congress itself. There are so many fires going on, and Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, they just sitting in their kitchen, sipping their coffee, saying this is fine. And they're going to be vaporized. They're going to be vaporized by the progressive asteroid. And they don't even know it. They don't even recognize it. And instead, even mainstream media right now is engaged in these petty attacks against these progressive Democrats, because the mainstream media is like a direct tool of these corporate assholes, again, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, etc. And what I mean by that is that for so long, a lot of major Democrats did not need an organizing ground game in order to win. All they needed to do was to spend money on TV ads, spend money on phone bankers, spend money on door knockers. And that was it. So a couple donors could basically cover all of their expenses for a campaign, and they didn't have to do a damn thing, really. But the problem, and what this has done in the long term, by the way, is kind of fuse a lot of mainstream outlets into a sort of political pipeline where establishment Democrats can feed these mainstream outlets stories, and these mainstream outlets then just kind of regurgitate the same shit on obviously to way more people. And an example of that is here. This is genuinely crazy here. This is Jake Tapper interviewing Dan Goldman after he got destroyed by Mr. Rogers with the steel spine. I love it. Love it.
Your mayor doesn't think that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state.
I think any state that privileges one religion over the other is one that I can't tell you I support, whether it be Israel or Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. And a lot of that comes back to a fundamental belief that we should all be considered equal no matter what our faith is.
What was your take on that when you heard him say that?
Well, I'm glad he mentioned Saudi Arabia. I mean, there are 40 plus countries that are officially Muslim, or maybe
Jesus. Officially Muslim. What are there ones that are secret Muslims?
maybe in the 20s, and I think more than that, that are officially have Christianity as a religion. Many of those countries do not abide by international human rights. I mean, even Uganda, as an example, which is where the mayor is from, puts people in prison for life for consensual homosexual relationships. But so if that is actually going to be the standard, then I would urge him to speak out against other countries that do not follow human rights, in his view, and that are fundamentally one religion.
Your mayor doesn't think that Israel...
Oh, God. This is very clearly a weird, rambling attempt to slander Zohran Mamdani for being from Uganda, and it's just like, that's irrelevant to anything that's happening right now. Like, okay. Ask Zohran Mamdani about the anti-LGBTQ bigotry in Uganda. See, I'm pretty sure he'll just slam dunk answer that and be like, yeah, that sucks. That's a bad part about Uganda. But like, this is the kind of thing that I mean. This story only comes out because there are some people in positions of power that feel very threatened by what Zohran Mamdani is building with his, marvelous political machine, right? And not only that, like, God, some of the things being leaked right now are crazy. House Dems rocked by another socialist upset. Wake up call. And like, I read through this earlier. It's not a wake-up call. It's not surprising that districts with a lot of working-class people vote for a candidate who's pro-working-class policy. That's not shocking. That's not an upset. That's not a wake-up call. You know what is popular. And that's the thing, right? Establishment Democrats know what is popular. They know what working class people, the majority of people within all of their districts, they understand what is popular. They refuse to actually enact policy that is popular, but they do it because they are paid by corporations, special interests, by billionaire contributions, specifically in order not to pass those popular initiatives. Full stop. That's what's happening. Our entire political system has been compromised by billionaire cash. Miriam Adelson has some spending to do. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, we've in the past been protected from infinite spending on elections by campaign finance laws. But the Supreme Court yesterday overturned any sort of check on limiting contributions to political candidates, essentially saying, well, that whilst, a super PAC cannot coordinate with a political campaign, but you can give infinite money to a super PAC, they're now saying you can give infinite money to a political party, and then the political party can coordinate with the political campaign. Which seems like you've just created like an ultra super PAC in the form of the political party itself. Which, like, this is catastrophic for any kind of democratic system. But establishment Democrats, they've been in favor of the political corruption the entire time. Diana DeGette's lost, probably pissed off a lot of people waiting for her to retire so they could run with her blessing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because a lot of these establishment Democrat types feel like they have been waiting in line for their turn. And all these progressives are jumping the line and completely obliterating the system that determined when it was their turn to hold political power. It's truly disgusting, right? Anyway, all of this being said, I do enjoy stories like this, right? Dems split on Israel in failed Lebanon vote. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking from reading the headline here. Oh, Dems split on Israel in failed Lebanon vote. Oh, okay, so like it was like 50-50. You know, it was pretty close. The vote underscores a widening divide among progressives and moderates over a long-term ally. Well, okay, so like it was like a 50-50 vote among Democrats. Like, okay, yeah, half the progressives, half the moderates. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, the resolution offered by Representative Rashida Tlaib would have limited the Trump administration's ability to intervene militarily in Lebanon, where Israel has attacked Hezbollah. It was defeated 189 to 235, but more than twice as many Democrats backed Tlaib on this second effort in less than a month, with 187 members of her party supporting the resolution versus just 91 4 weeks prior. 2 Republicans voted for it. So to be very clear here, the centrist coalition that's against Rashida Tlaib, they went out there and said, well, we can't have that, right? Can't have that. We have here a shattering of the Democratic coalition, where they're voting for Rashida Tlaib's proposal. Even moderate Dems are starting to align themselves with progressives, because they can read where the wind is blowing and they understand, oh, just like Julie Menon, we need to align ourselves with some of these progressives, and maybe some of that progressive riz will rub off on us and we'll be able to hold on to our seats. That's what's happening right now. It's crazy. So I just thought this was all very fascinating. I like the idea that Mamdani is building this political machine. I like the parallel being explicitly drawn between, old school Tammany Hall, pre-graft scandals, and what Zohran Mamdani is building here with Tammany Hall. I like that one better. I like that better. And I like the fact that we're continuing to see this ripple out and completely disrupt the Democrat status quo that for too long has not worked to serve working people. So, all that being said, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the Tammany Hall situation. And also, folks, join your local Dems, join your local DSA, and if you need help, join our Discord. Reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. Reach out to GamerG for help with your local DSA. And folks, last but not least, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is comfortable, sexy, non-tucking lingerie. Check it out. ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the doobly-doo. Keep on going.
Riverboat deck is going to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, dating, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's